Our subject today is Operation Iraqi Freedom, which began in March 2003 when President George W. Bush ordered U.S. forces to invade Iraq. U.S. forces would remain in Iraq until the end of 2011. As they withdrew, the conflict that the United States had begun more than 8 years earlier continued. Operation Iraqi Freedom marks a true turning point in American history, albeit not a turn in the direction that the war's architects and boosters expected. My guess is that historians will number it among the most decisive campaigns in modern military history. In its way, Iraqi freedom invites comparison with the battles of Stalingrad and Midway. Had Nazi Germany prevailed at Stalingrad, World War II in Europe just might have had a different outcome. Had it succeeded in destroying the American fleet at Midway in 1942, Imperial Japan just might have won the Pacific War. In fact, however, defeat at Stalingrad doomed Nazi Germany, and defeat at Midway spelled the death knell of the Japanese Empire. In both cases, much fighting was still to come, of course, but the war's final outcome had already been determined. So, too, with Iraqi freedom. Had the United States achieved victory in Iraq, overall victory in America's war for the greater Middle East just might have followed. But failure in Iraq, even if that failure remains unacknowledged, doomed the larger enterprise. By the time U.S. forces left Iraq in 2011, winning the war for the greater Middle East, in Donald Rumsfeld's formulation, changing the way they live, was no longer even plausible. Much fighting was still to come, of course, but as far as the United States was concerned, with the failure of Operation Iraqi Freedom, the larger war's final outcome was now foreordained. Washington was not going to achieve its aims. So it's important for us to understand why the United States chose to invade Iraq in the first place, and why U.S. military efforts there went so badly awry. Complicating the challenge involved in achieving that understanding is the vast amount of misinformation sown by the United States government and by war propagandists purporting to be journalists or disinterested observers. The official rationale for invading Iraq, the one sold to the American public, emphasized two things: danger and opportunity. The ostensible danger was that Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden might forge a partnership, the Iraqi dictator then providing the al-Qaeda leader with weapons of mass destruction. Allow that to happen, and the next 9/11 would be beyond horrific, according to such officials as National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, who publicly conjured up images of nuclear weapons detonating in major American cities. Rice was hardly the only Cassandra. The most senior officials in the Bush administration launched a coordinated campaign meant to convince the American public, the U.S. Congress, and the wider world that Saddam Hussein represented a mortal threat. At the same time, war with Iraq presented an opportunity, supporters claimed, in this sense. It would demonstrate American beneficence. Ousting the evil Saddam and freeing Iraqis would boost America's standing in the eyes of Muslims everywhere. Hitherto respected authors and journalists such as Max Boot and Thomas Friedman publicly voiced support for the administration's rush to war, arguing that ridding Iraq of Saddam Hussein would improve the lives of Iraqis and thus enhance the reputation of America in the region. That Iraqis yearned for liberation and would repay their deliverers with gratitude was therefore taken for granted. Speaking at a Pentagon press conference on the eve of the Iraq War, Paul Wolfowitz assured reporters that, quote, "You're going to find Iraqis out cheering American troops." He was hardly alone in that expectation. Of course, the argument that Saddam posed a great danger has not held up. Not only did Saddam possess no weapons of mass destruction, he had already abandoned efforts to acquire them. That's simply a fact. Further, the likelihood of bin Laden ever forging a partnership with Saddam was remote, to put it mildly. Apart from each ranking high on Washington's enemies list, the two had next to nothing in common. Indeed, the Ba'athist regime in Baghdad represented the sort of corrupt, decadent Arab regime that bin Laden and his followers despised. Did the Bush administration know in advance that Saddam's WMD arsenal did not exist? Or did senior officials and others on the outside clamoring for war commit an honest mistake? In other words, did they lie or did they err? Well, until Google makes it possible to search the human heart, we can't know for sure. Let's just say this. In all walks of life, but especially in politics, people believe what they find it convenient to believe. Whatever supports their agenda or advances their own interests, that's what they tend to see as true. In other words, people often lie to themselves before they lie to others. Those within the Bush administration who were eager for war against Iraq accepted at face value wisps of evidence suggesting that Iraqi WMD did exist, and they dismissed out of hand evidence to the contrary. The picture of Saddam as a looming threat was the picture they wanted to see. Such was the view of senior British officials well situated to interpret the thinking among Bush's closest advisors. To the Brits, it was clear that Washington was hell-bent on war with Iraq. Therefore, as a highly classified British assessment put it, quote, the intelligence and facts were being fixed around the policy. This tendency to see what you want to see also pertained to the supposed rewards awaiting the United States when it liberated Baghdad. In retrospect, Vice President Cheney's prediction that U.S. troops would be, quote, greeted as liberators comes across as naive. Even so, it was expedient for Cheney to believe this at the time. Who knows? Maybe he even meant what he said. So whether those promoting the war were knaves or fools, consciously dishonest or merely stupid, is an interesting question. But ultimately, it's a distraction. Why? Because the war's official or public rationale did not tell the whole story. The putative danger posed by Saddam and the supposed opportunity inherent in liberating Iraqis were merely the means devised to market the war, to sell it. They do not describe Operation Iraqi Freedom's actual rationale. No, the ambitions persuading Bush and his advisors to invade Iraq extended well beyond Iraq itself. Going to Baghdad was not the end. It was the means to a much larger end. Iraq was merely step one in a project of breathtaking scope.